Knowles on the news. Susan Knowles.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. Please check out my website at SUSANKNOWLES.com. And also you can get the podcast for this show at Spreaker.com or just download the Spreaker app onto your phone. Okay, well, the primaries are over. How did it go in your state? My state went pretty much as expected. I'm in California. I showed up at the 7 o'clock in the morning when the polls opened. And I knew immediately we were in trouble. And when I say we, I'm talking about the Republicans and the conservatives, if there are any left, in the state of California and perhaps across the nation, but this was just California yesterday. I basically walked up and there was a line already. They had been there probably, maybe 15, 20 minutes before opening. And I just said to myself, okay, it's going to be one of those days where Hillary is going to do well and the Democrats are really, really going to do well today. Because in California, when you have a high turnout like we had yesterday, it's always Democrats that are going to win. Now, I know that California is a Democrat blue state. I get it. But there are times when the Republicans can do very well, but not when a lot of people show up. And you could just see it in the eyes of some of these people. They couldn't wait to vote for Hillary. And I just know that down to my fiber of every being in me. I know they were voting for Hillary. I was kind of hoping that they would go ahead and vote for Bernie, because in that way it would show Hillary, you don't have everybody's support that you think you do. But nope. People were just clamoring to get in there. And then we had Kamala Harris, who is running for Barbara Boxer's seat. And this is going to be one of those elections. And when I went to bed last night, this was a case. I'm assuming it still is. And in a lot of respects, I don't even want to know what the case is, because I know it's bad, whichever way. But this may be the first time in maybe history, but definitely in recent history, that you're going to have two Democrats running against each other for that seat. There won't be a Republican. So Kamala Harris, a very prominent figure that everybody knows, including the Obama administration, is very likely to get Barbara Boxer's seat. Now, in California, we've been trying for years to get rid of Boxer, and apparently the Republicans were, but the Democrats weren't. And it was our opportunity, our golden opportunity. There had been rumors earlier in the year that Michelle Obama would be running for her seat. Sorry, I had to stop on that one for a second. And everybody was hoping, okay, maybe this will be an opportunity where we don't have that happen. For once, we can have a good Republican who's going to come forward and who's going to run, and we can get somebody decent in there to take Barbara Boxer's seat, who's, I don't know, I think she's been in there 100 years. I mean, it seems like it. And then coming up next is Dianne Feinstein. Probably will, in the next few years, it'll be somebody looking for her. And on and on. I tell you what's going to happen. In California, on and on, it's just going to be one Democrat after the other. And I always say this, I know you get tired of hearing this, but the way that California goes, so goes the rest of the nation. And I think yesterday, I don't know, looking at the primaries, it was so obvious that conservatism as we have known it, and the GOP as we've known it, in my opinion, it's gone. It's over. It really is. I think that people are sick and tired of the way it always has been with the GOP. I don't necessarily think that people know what they want the new GOP or whatever it's called. I don't think they know what they want it to look like. I really don't. I think they like what Trump is saying because it's different. It's not like the same old rhetoric that we've heard, although Trump is now going to a teleprompter like Obama so that they can kind of curb a little bit of what he says. And I know that some of what he says is really accurate, but it's the delivery, and that's always been his problem. It's the delivery that does him in. But I don't know how you combat the people on the progressive Democrat side. I mean, there's so many people now that all they are talking about is how wonderful Hillary is. I watched just a few minutes with Megyn Kelly, which I don't even watch Fox anymore, but I was flipping through trying to get some results. And they had California voters sitting talking to each other. Automatically, you knew that it was something you probably didn't want to watch, but it's almost like a train wreck you can't help but watch for a few minutes anyway. And people were just absolutely aglow with talk about Hillary Clinton, how wonderful she is, how she's proven herself and what she can do. And I'm all the time I'm thinking, she's proven herself. There's Benghazi, there's anything that she's touched in the Middle East that's gone bad, on and on. I can't think of, and I try sometimes, I think of what's one positive thing that she has done for this country, and what maybe one positive thing that she did well in her job, and I can't think of it. I really can't. But these people were sitting there, again, just, oh my gosh, she's so wonderful. She's done such a great job for this country. She's been out there in the trenches. She was a senator. She was this. She was that. And I was sitting there thinking, but you're not saying one thing that this woman has done well, because there isn't anything. And it's a sad state of where we are when you can hear case after case being made against Hillary, with Benghazi, with the emails, with the private server that she had, with, I don't know. I mean, there's such a long list. Whitewater, did I say that again? And still people ignore that. It does not matter. I think that she is one of those people, they should just call her Teflon Hillary, because she is one of those people, no matter what she does, she can somehow convince at least the progressives that what she has done is she's been a victim. She's a victim of everything. Everybody just hates her because she's so great and they're so jealous of her. She's a victim, just like, Bill's a victim. That Monica Lewinsky, she really just did him in because he's a poor victim. What could he do? But you hear this and people are saying on the one hand, oh, well, she'll never make it to become president. They'll indict her and she'll never serve. And on the other hand, people are like, well, she didn't do anything wrong. People just don't like her, and that's why they're coming after her. And I think that's about basically the same thing that she says about herself. But I can see, number one, I don't know that she'll ever be indicted for anything. I mean, everybody else has, if they had those allegations against them, they wouldn't be running for dog catcher in their community. And yet here is this woman running for president of the United States. And each primary she goes into, she wins. I think Bernie did win one or two last night, of the ones that really don't matter, I guess. But I was hoping he would win California. I really was, because I really wanted that to be a setback for her. But nope, overwhelmingly, California went to her. And then Bernie's like, well, I'm gonna lay off about half of my staff, but I'm just gonna keep going. Why are you keeping going there, Bernie? I mean, what are you going to hope to do? I mean, are you hoping that somewhere along the line they are going to indict her and then you can step in? I mean, I don't know. And then there's talk about, well, there's going to be a contested convention at the Democrat convention this year. I doubt that very seriously. I think that it's over as far as who is going to be the presidential candidate for the Democrats. It's going to be Hillary Clinton. It's over for the Republicans. It's going to be Donald Trump. I don't think there's going to be a contested convention. And I know people were hoping that voters in California would go out and vote for Ted Cruz and send a message. And I was looking at the results last night, and And Kasich, I think, got more votes than Ted Cruz in California yesterday. I mean, the Kasich name just keeps coming up over and over. I think we have to sort of resign ourselves now to knowing these are the two people that we have. This is what we have to work with. How do we make the best of it, or do we just ignore it? But I want to go back to what I've said kind of over and over. I know in the past we've always put all of our hopes on a presidential candidate. That this is going to be the new candidate that's going to take us to new heights and new places, and we need to get behind that candidate. And I'm not saying you should or shouldn't get behind whatever candidate you vote for. That's not my point here. My point is that one of the reasons I think the conservative movement is just about gone is because we sat back and waited for everyone else, every new president, every new senator, whatever the case may be. We've waited for that person to take the lead, to tell us what it is that we need to do. And we, the people, have slowly just become the government. We've just sort of slipped into the government and go along with what the government tells us to do. And I know everybody's got high hopes that Donald Trump is going to be the one that changes all of that. I hope you're right. I hope he wins. I hope you're right if that's the case. But I don't know that that's the case. And I do know that if Hillary gets in, we're probably going to have the hardest uphill battle fight that we've ever had for our Second Amendment rights. Because this woman is hell-bent on taking your Second Amendment rights away. You know it. I know it. And I think a lot of people have come to the point where they may just acquiesce. I mean, and not only in the most liberal states. I'm talking about across the United States. And I know that doesn't apply to places like Texas. I get that. But I think people are to the point where, like, you know what, either I don't care anymore because nothing I do really matters, or it's not really happening, so I don't have to really pay attention to it. She's not really going to take the guns away. Or they're just willing to say, you know what, I think you're right. I think there does need to be some restrictions put on guns because people are dying. And then, you suddenly find yourself as the conservative who wants to protect Second Amendment rights, you find yourself in the minority instead of the majority. So we sit back and we wait for something to happen. Instead of being proactive, we wait for something to happen and then we respond. And that's not working. And it's not working allowing us to sit back and wait for somebody else to take care of the issue. I'm going to be thinking about over the next couple of weeks, and I hope you will too, on what it is we can do differently. We need to do things different. We really do. What we're doing for the past 20 years isn't working anymore. You see everybody else out there at these, let's say the Donald Trump rallies, perfect example. Everybody wrapped in their Mexican flags, taking bags of rocks and hitting people over the head, pelting women with eggs, on and on and on. Now, we can't do that because then we become them. But what can we do legally? What can we do morally? What can we do as a just nation, if we still are one, to have our rights upheld? And I'll tell you, Christians, prepare yourself. Because especially if Hillary Clinton gets in, you can see more and more every day your rights as a Christian are going to be taken away from you. Because I don't see this woman as a Bible thumper. I don't see her as somebody who really cares about your rights. What she cares about is what's popular, whatever that is. Transgender, lesbian, LGBT, whatever. Marriage, homosexual marriage, whatever at the moment is popular will get her the vote, will get her reelected to a second term, and will get her cooperation from the public. That's what she believes at the moment. Now that changes depending upon the shift in the wind, but that's another case, another story. But we have to do something completely different than we've ever done before. And let's face it, sometimes conservatives, we're lazy. We sit on our butts and wait. We wait for somebody else to do it, or we wait for somebody else to tell us how to do it. And then we may throw a few dollars at something, and then we're done. Whereas progressives make it their life's work to do what they do. And I don't suggest that we become like the progressives, but we're going to have to do something different. Unless you want to become a progressive, unless you say, you know what, I'm tired of fighting and I no longer want to do this, then you're going to have to fight. And I don't mean illegally, immorally, or any other way, but you are going to have to get out and put as much time into this as the progressives do to figure out a new way to get your point across, to get your religious freedoms and your every other constitutional freedoms across. We are right in the process of losing our constitutional rights. And I know, again, people don't really care because they're like, no, that'll never happen. Really? Just look back at this administration for the past almost 8 years, and you can see how many rights that we have lost, how many we continue to lose every day. And guess what? He has until January. We can lose a lot more. We have this whole year to go. We haven't even had an election. And he can do damage. People, oh, well, he's just a lame duck president. No, he's not. You know, if you think that, people thought he was a lame duck president when the House and the Senate went to the Republicans. The only lame ducks were the GOP. And the GOP is still lame duck. Whether anybody wants to admit it or not, we have absolutely no power because we choose not to have any power. And part of what we're going to have to do, we're going to have to elect people that don't speak out of the side of their mouths and just to get elected and then don't do anything once they're elected that we ask them to do. That has to end. But I don't know how we do that. I don't know how to get people together in the GOP or the conservatives, libertarians. We're so divided right now that trying to get us together, you can see how difficult it is. And the left, no matter how divided they are between Hillary and Bernie, in the end, they're going to unite. Now, whether it will happen as a lot of people think it will, that all those Bernie supporters will go over to Donald Trump and he'll win, or whether those Bernie supporters will say, you know what, it's more important for us to win than it is for us to hate Hillary Clinton. Because that's what the GOP is saying. So why wouldn't the Democrats be telling their people the same thing? And those people may just go right over and vote for Hillary Clinton. You know, I don't know about you, but I'm sick and tired of hearing people like Hillary Clinton sit and talk about how, you know, she's the people's president, basically. She understands, you know. She's just this southern girl from Arkansas with her little fake accent. And how she's just like you and me when she's sitting there with a $12,000 jacket on, which, you know, she probably could have gotten a better deal at Walmart, and better looking jacket. But it's hypocrisy, and we see it all the time. Don't tell me you're just like me when you know you're not just like me. You don't understand me. You're so far removed from my life that you don't have a clue. And for all those people who sit out there and believe the garbage, it's amazing. And I heard people last night who were Hillary supporters. Oh, we need to get behind Hillary. She's going to be the first female president, and she's going to be able to lead us and tell us what we need to do. They're already in line to follow the leader. They don't care. These are the same people that went out and voted for Barack Obama because he was the first African-American president who was going to lead the way. Yeah, he led the way, all right. Not the way people thought he was going to lead, but they led the way, and they got more money than they've ever gotten from the government, and I'm sure they're hoping that the same thing is going to happen with Hillary. That's what we're fighting, folks. We're fighting against money being thrown at people and people not having to do anything, and who are willing to listen and obey this government because they're getting what they need at the moment, or what they think they need. and they're getting more than they feel that they would normally get because they're getting paid straight from the government to sit and do nothing, while unbeknownst to them, they don't realize the freedoms that are taken away and what is taken away from them as a human being. So, since we're on the subject of doing things differently, changing things, needing to find a new way, it always brings me back to the education system here in the United States. As you know, the parents out there who are listening, there's something wrong with what's happening with your child's education. If you're not more aware these days of how Common Core and manuals from the government are being used in classes, your child is being told what they can and can't say, you can't discuss Bible verses, whatever the case may be. It's becoming more and more obvious, it should be by now, to people that there's something definitely wrong in the education system, and it needs to be changed. Now, apparently, China has figured out a new way to handle their cases. What they're doing is, for people who are taking an equivalent to the SATs in America, they're saying if you cheat, you're going to go to prison. I guess they've had so much mass cheating in their system that they're done with it. And I'm not even suggesting that we do anything like that in America. But can you imagine that? Can you imagine if we had some strict laws or rules or whatever you want to call them in our school? Would it make a difference? I mean, what we've done now is we've gone overboard. We've gotten so many laws and so many rules that are just ridiculous, that go over to the left. We need them to kind of come back to the middle, if you will. But I remember, cheating is a huge problem, probably for many schools. And I don't know if it's because so much pressure is put on kids, which doesn't matter. I mean, you can't have an excuse of, I felt pressure and that's why I did it. No. You have to get to a certain point and be taught in your life that you have to do your best. And whatever that is, then that's what needs to be acceptable to everyone. You can't make a C student an A student if it's an impossibility. If they're working 100%, giving everything they have, then they're going to be a C student, and we have to be okay with that. I was not a C student. I was an A and B student, but I worked my butt off. I have seen some people who are C students who have worked their butts off, and they're still C students. And if that's the case, we need to say, okay, you've done the best that you can. But I think, especially now with education, everything seems to be about testing. In the classrooms that I've gone into, let's say when I was pulling out one of my clients to see as a therapist, all I saw kids doing were taking tests, one after another. I mean, really, a lot of times the teacher wasn't even teaching. The teacher just kind of sitting there and watching them take tests. And then if they had any questions, they could come up and ask the teacher a question. But it's like multiple choice all day long. I don't know what happened to the education system. I can remember actually having discussions in my classroom. I can remember actually being taught something. And it was wonderful. I mean, you actually felt like at the end of the day that you had learned something. And we had a lot of homework. And I know that today it's like, oh my gosh, you tell a kid that you're going to give them homework, they flip out. Well, why do I need homework? Why can't I do this in class? Why do I have to go home and do it too? Well, that's called learning. But, if you don't want your education, I mean, you can't force that on somebody either. But I remember we used to go home. We would have a short break, and then we would have to start doing homework until dinner. And then we would have dinner and do homework after dinner, then take a shower and go to bed. That was mostly what we did 5 days a week. For one thing, it teaches you really well to be disciplined. And it also, in a lot of respects, it keeps you off the streets, if you will. While our parents were typically at home, today that is absolutely not the case. And kids are kind of left on their own to do whatever they want to do after school. And sometimes, if there were a lot of assignments to do and continually studying, you wouldn't have maybe as many problems. But of course, if nobody's there to supervise, it may not matter anyway. But I think we've had a huge problem for many, many years, and it's just now really coming to light. And as I've said before, I know parents are extremely busy and they feel like there's nothing that they can do. But again, if we're going to make changes, aren't we going to have to make changes at that level as well? And meaning at that level is an educational level, not a political one, where the involvement with children has to begin before they even go to school. And it has to continue. And I don't know what the rules are, but I know there are some homeschool groups that get together and they kind of co-teach, I guess, if you will, so that one parent is not responsible for doing that all the time. And I don't know if some parents could actually work and homeschool at the same time, or what the case may be. But I know that if you're not going to do homeschool, then you're going to have to really look at the education that your child is receiving, because it's going to become worse as we become more over to the progressive side, which is what we're seeing with the political forecast. Our education system is going to go that same way. And you're going to continue generation after generation to grow progressive children. And that's all they're going to get. They're going to get that at school. They're going to be pressured, if you will, not to speak about conservative issues, not to write about conservative issues, and not to do anything outside the box. I can remember this even when I was a child. That one time I wanted to write, we had an assignment, write about a particular, author or poet, somebody like that. And the teacher wanted you to sit down, and at that time we had index notes that you had to fill out, little index cards, and put them together and tell where you got your sources, and then write the paper, that type of thing. And everybody, of course, picked the same person, or the same one or two people to write about, because they were encouraged by the teacher to do so. And, looking back, they were left-wing type individuals, of course. And I didn't want to be like everybody else. I didn't want to write the same thing as everybody else. So I picked somebody that I had never even heard of, and apparently, I don't know if the teacher had heard of, to write about. And I was so excited. I was going to be learning something new. I was going to be doing something different than everyone else. And I felt proud that I was stepping out and doing that. And so I remember taking up my preliminary report to my teacher and saying, hey, look at what I have, and this woman's great, blah, 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 blah. And the teacher looks at this and goes, well, I don't really know who this is. And I think that wink, wink, I think that you should pick someone else to do your report on. And I remember I was very young. I don't know what grade I was in. I think it may still have been elementary school, maybe middle school at the highest. But it was so devastating to me to know that you couldn't step outside of the box, that it wasn't something that was valued. And it wasn't something that was acceptable. You had to sort of get in line. And that's what we have seen in our public education system forever. I mean, how many times do your kids come home and tell you they've stepped outside of the box and it's been appreciated? You know that it's very, very slim opportunities to do that. And in fact, kids are looked at, and they want the kids to be uniform in everything they do, right down to their behavior. As I've talked about, I can't tell you the number of times that I've had parents come to me and say, the teacher says my child has ADHD and I need to get medication. And I'll say to them, okay, explain to me what the teacher is seeing and why the teacher thinks that they need medication. And I kid you not, And parents, I really hope that you listen to this. I kid you not when I say this, but it'll be, well, when they're when they're sitting on the floor in the reading circle, my little boy, for example, instead of sitting up, he lays down to hear the stories. Or he prefers to sit in a chair rather than on the floor. And I sit there and I look at these parents who, and I can't even imagine what type of pressure that they're under to fix their child so that the teacher won't have to be bothered with them. And how the parents feel so pressured to conform to what the school is telling them that they must conform to. But when they come in and they're like, oh my God, it's almost like they're in tears. What am I supposed to do? How do I fix my kid? Okay, all I know, I just give a medication. The teacher will be happy and we'll go back to doing what we were doing before. And so my job is to sit there and kind of talk to the parents and say, do you really think there's an issue with your child? We kind of start there. And then typically what happens when I assess a child, it's a behavioral issue, right? The kid doesn't want to sit on the floor like everyone else. Now, should the child sit on the floor? Well, if you're going to put your child in public school where everybody has to be uniform, and please don't tell me that that's not true. If you're going to put your child in a situation, in an environment where that's the expectation, then you're going to have to get used to having your child sit there and conform, unless you can work something out with the teacher, or better yet, take your child out and homeschool your child. So when I work with the parent and tell them how to, reinforce the positive behaviors, the appropriate ones, and how to change the inappropriate ones, they bring their child back to school, and miraculously, without medication, the child is cured and the teacher is happy. But I wonder how many children are out there today on medication because the teacher has said, and I'm not blaming the teachers, trust me. They're doing their jobs and it's hard enough. But we're talking about how many kids are out there on medication that don't need to be because the teacher just wants the problem to go away. The parent just wants the teacher's problem to go away so that there won't be a problem with the parent. And no one is really thinking about the child because some of the medications that are used are going to stunt your child's growth and do other things to your child that you are not going to want to be doing. But it's very sad, and I know I've seen these children because I've worked with these children, and a lot of times if there is an issue, the child gets to a point in an age where they say, I don't want these medications anymore, and then they start self-medicating with marijuana or something else. So we, in a lot of respects, we failed our children because we wanted to make life easier for ourselves. And I think if we're looking at what do we need to change, what do we need to do different, this is absolutely one of those areas that needs to be changed. For me, I look at it as parents need to get back control of the education system. They need to put in the teachers, the principal, and everybody else and run the school the way the parents feel that is in the best interest of their children. And again, that's going to be difficult because parents don't stand together. There are parents who believe absolutely that the school is doing the best for their child and they don't even question it. And they let the school tell them what they need to do and how to do it. So it may be that some of the parents who are hoping to raise their children on, let's say, conservative Christian values, public school may not be the answer for you unless you can convince a whole bunch of people to follow along with you and that there needs to be a change. And also at who you elect in your school board. Who are these people? Typically, they are left-wing progressives. So when you elect them onto your school board, you're going to get more left-wing agenda type things in your school. So a long time ago, parents lost control of the school. They really did. And I've seen it so often. Again, while the parents feel so much pressure, it's the peer pressure that they had when they were children, and now it's the peer pressure they're getting from the school as parents on how to raise their children and how, their child needs help, or, whatever the case may be. It's all assessed by the school, and the parents have very little say over it. And trust me, if Hillary gets in, it takes a village to raise your child. You're going to see more villages springing up and more efforts to control your children and their minds. And, again, the progressives have been at this for over 100 years in our education system alone. They're ready, willing, and able, and beyond that point, to do what it is they need to do to take control of your child. And sometimes, it's not the teachers. Again, there are great teachers out there who are just doing their jobs and trying to survive the political atmosphere that they find themselves in. Teachers want to teach their children. Teachers want to do a great job for the most part. But it's the political process surrounding them that causes the disconnect. I think things were fine when teachers were given the right to teach whatever they wanted to in the class, what was appropriate for each child, that type of thing. And of course, there were safeguards. If a teacher got out of line or whatever, the parents could go in, have a conference with the teacher, talk with the principal, whatever was necessary. And things worked well. And then you had Common Core that came along and screwed everything up, basically. And now I hear, people with Common Core, oh, well, we kind of made a mistake. We really do need to involve the parents. Really, really. And, I really feel that they would only be saying that if they knew now that more parents were going to do what they say that they should do. Again, you have big government telling you, oh, this is what's best for your child. Trust me on this one. Instead of the parent saying, I don't think so. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard, when I try to work with the teacher to, let's say, modify a behavioral change in the child, trying to get the teacher to give a positive reinforcement every time an appropriate behavior is shown in class, and it's like, well, I don't have time. I've got too many kids. I don't have time to do that, and there's nobody else that can do it. And again, I'm not blaming the teacher. You got 40 people in a classroom or whatever. You can't watch each individual one, and you do need them to be in some type of order so that you can get through the classroom and get through the class that you need to teach. Maybe there needs to be more people in the classroom. I don't know. Maybe there needs to be, counselors who are in the classroom that can help with that type of thing. But a lot of respects, we're not willing to put that much time and effort and money into the education system. And if we do, we get it from the government, and then the government tells us how it needs to be done. And that's not working. It's not going to work either. So I'm hoping that in the future, somehow, parents can get more involved. Parents can say, you know what, we've got to do something different here, whether that's homeschool, whether that's charter school. If it's not working for your child, then there has to be an individual program that will work. And a lot of times that's not a special education program, an IEP as they call it, an individual education program, as much as it is, maybe it's not the right environment. And don't always listen to the teacher that tells you your child needs medication. This is your responsibility and your child. You need to be the one that takes your child to the professionals to determine if that's true or not. That teacher is not a therapist. The teacher is not a psychiatrist. The teacher is not a doctor. You can't listen to one person and make that type of decision based upon that one person. So as we move forward, please think about those things and think and evaluate, is it working for you? Is the education system working for you? Is your child getting his or her best education? Or does there really need to be a change? and what values you want to teach your child, and are they learning those values in the school? Look for alternatives, alternative homeschool where, again, where people get together and they homeschool several kids so that one child isn't being homeschooled every day by the same person and maybe becomes more of a burden than some people can handle. Still on the subject of change. It seems like there's so much that needs changing right now. And one more effort, I think it has to be in the judicial system. I don't know if you read about what happened in Stanford for the Stanford student who basically was accused and found guilty of raping a woman, an unconscious woman, behind the dumpster. And these two people came upon him and saw him in the act and raping this woman. I think he was 20 years old, blonde-haired, looked blue-eyed guy, looked like. And the prosecutors had asked for 6 years, and he was given only 6 months because the judge felt, what wouldn't be good for him to have a longer sentence, or something like that. Meaning, the way I interpreted it is that any blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy that went to jail is not going to do well there from the other guys in the jail. And he will probably maybe serve about 3 months of his quote-unquote jail time. And who knows where that's going to be. I mean, I don't know the details. I don't know if he's going to be at home or sitting in some local jail by himself. I have no idea. But I can't even imagine this. I can't imagine what the victim is feeling like. And I was reading some articles about how the victim feels that, she's the one really that's guilty and not that guy, because the questions that were asked of her to convince people that, she wasn't lying. And I understand it from both sides. I really do. There are a lot of people who claim to have been raped. We've seen that in the news, and they weren't. And some people's lives have been absolutely destroyed because of the lies. And they have to be sure. They have to make sure. And as the attorney who's representing that person, you have to do your job to the ultimate best that you can do your job, or you'll be sued for malpractice. So they have to ask all of those questions that are really probably the most disgusting questions that a rape victim can hear. But in this case, what really angers me is the fact that witnesses came upon this guy, saw him in the middle of the act. Okay, what more do you need to know? The woman is unconscious. Here's the questions you need to ask as the attorney. Did you consent? Did you consent to the act of sexual intercourse? If the answer is yes, okay, case over. If the answer is no, then, especially if you weren't even aware of what was going on, that's a rape, And two people saw her unconscious being raped. What more do you need to know? It's kind of an open and shut case. And it kind of goes back to, in certain ways, privilege of some people in the court system. And the feeling of unfairness by some of these judges. Now, I heard also that the judge may have gone to Stanford himself, and maybe there was a bias there. I don't know what the case is. But I know in circumstances like this, the people who are in that community need to assess whether or not they think this judge did their jobs properly. And if not, the judge should be taken out of office. And yeah, that's going to take a little bit of time and effort to do that, but it needs to be done because justice is not being served. And we've had so many instances lately where justice isn't being served. Look at Baltimore and the Ferguson case, where we're going to give them room to destroy, space to destroy. That's justice? I know that's not the judicial system, but my point is, that's justice? Or the state's attorney, this one's for you. We're going to double barrel here, and we're coming after everything because this is for you, all you people who have for all of your life felt like you were a victim to racism. We're going to come after. We're going to come after you. And that was in Baltimore, was the Freddie Gray case. I think I said Ferguson. But now the mayor of Baltimore is gone. Thank you. Bye-bye. And the state's attorney now, on the one cop so far who was found innocent, that cop is suing the state's attorney. Actually, it will be the office. It won't be her personally, I'm sure. But, no, maybe it will be. Because of the fact that he believes, and obviously his attorneys believe, they have a case there, that this case was, a criminal case was brought against somebody that it never should have been brought. You know, as I have said, and I'm sure others have said from the very beginning, I didn't see any criminal intent in the Freddie Gray case. I did, on the other hand, think that there could potentially be a cause of action in the civil realm of things. Who knows if they would be successful? I don't know. But I don't see any criminal intent with anyone. Even the person that was supposed to buckle him in, I don't know if they did or they forgot or, whatever. I don't think they intentionally thought, oh, let's break his neck and, this is what they wanted to do. And if it's negligence or gross negligence or whatever, that's a civil matter. It's not criminal. And thankfully, in that court, there's a judge, and oh my gosh, he's a black judge too, who was able to do the right thing against the white cop. And in that court, that cop was found not guilty of any wrongdoing. Justice is supposed to be blind, and that's the way it has always been until now. Those people who spoke out in Baltimore, like the mayor and like the state attorney, they're part of a system that's supposed to be impartial. And obviously they are not. But we have so much of that going on that, again, we've got to rein this in. We've got to know that when we have a system, the system is working. And in the case where the young lady who was raped was saying, that the attorneys, the questions were horrible. And I have no doubt that they were. But that's part and parcel of the judicial system and the burden of proof and everything else. And I don't know, maybe that's not working anymore. Maybe it's not working the way it's supposed to. Maybe we have judges in there who have an axe to grind and who can no longer be impartial. And if that's the case, then they need to be dismissed from their positions. And people need to say, you know what? Okay, here's one more judge not doing their job. One more judge that is obviously biased, whatever the case may be. And that judge needs to be taken out of their position. But I think that's another area where we have just let it go for so long. And we sit and go, wow, there's a problem here. And that shouldn't have been. I mean, this guy in Stanford, he gets what, like I said, 6 months, and 3 months maybe is what he'll have for raping someone against her will while she's unconscious. Are you kidding me? We talk about these civil trials and how much damage people get. How much damage do you think was done to that woman with having this happen to her? What do you think her life is going to be for the rest of her life? Not very good. I can tell you, not very good. Now, maybe she will sue the family civilly. I don't know. But perhaps she doesn't want to go through another torturous time in being accused herself, and it won't be worth it to her. But her recovery time, if ever, will be years and years and years. She'll never be the same. And Mr. Stanford will be able in 3 months to go on back with his life as though, I don't know about having to, if you'll get a job, but I'm sure perhaps with his connections, he won't have to apply like you and I would, and so it won't matter what his past was like, or he'll have somebody taking care of him, his father, who thinks that, who's made some inappropriate comment about the rape. I mean, geez, come on. But we have to do something to make that process also right. I mean, we have so many things that aren't working well. Our Congress isn't working the way it's supposed to. As the GOP majority, we should have been able to get anything passed that we wanted to. And it's not the system there that's broken. It's the people that we put in to ensure that the system isn't broken. Those people are broken. And we have so many things, from our educational system to judicial, the political process. All of those things, if you really want to sit down and look at it, it's broken. They are broken. And we have to determine how we make it right. And it's not going to be something that is done overnight. It's not going to be something where we can say, okay, we'll petition this week and we'll have something done and everything will be fine. And again, I know each week practically I bring up the ACLJ with Jay Sekulow. Those people do such an incredible job that we never even hear about. And if you're on Periscope, follow him on Periscope. He's on Facebook mentions a lot too. The work that they do is incredible. Things that so many injustices would have been done had his organization, a nonprofit organization, not stepped up to take the case to make sure that justice was served. And they really need donations. Why wouldn't you give to somebody like that who's doing the job, basically, that we as Americans ought to be more involved in? And again, I'm not blaming Americans. I know myself. I'm busy doing things, and I don't have a lot of time to go out and do extra things. But, apparently I'm going to have to start doing that. And apparently all of us are going to have to start doing that if we want to see some semblance of law, order, and justice in this country. I mean, look, again, I go back to what happened with the Donald Trump supporters in San Jose, Orange County, probably New Mexico, name it, whichever one, all but San Diego. Those people are, they did, again, a bag of rocks. You hit somebody in the head with a bag of rocks and you weren't arrested right there on the spot, or somebody's not tracking you down right now. There's something wrong with that system. And what was it? Well, law enforcement, basically, rumor has it, that they didn't want to offend any of the protesters, rioters, so they didn't go out and arrest people. And they didn't protect the Trump supporters. How ridiculous is that? I don't care if they're Trump supporters, Hillary supporters, Bernie supporters, or Donald Duck supporters. Your job is to protect them. And I don't care who on the other side that you like, you're not supposed to have a bias. You're law enforcement. Your job is to enforce the law. And I have a lot of respect for police. I went to the police academy myself. I understand by going through there, even that much, what you have to do and what a thankless job it is. And I understand that. But if you decide to take that job and you are somehow allowed to do your job from your higher ups, in the case of San Jose, the chief of police kind of prevented that from happening, is what I understand. But you must do your job regardless of who you like and who you don't like. If a law is being broken, you must uphold that law and enforce that law. And I don't know why today, other than the fact that the chief of police in San Jose, maybe as a minority status, I don't know why you wouldn't have that guy looking for another job today. The people of San Jose. And again, maybe the people of San Jose don't like Donald Trump and they don't like his supporters. Okay, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine. But really, think about it. If that were your brother, your mother, your sister, your aunt, your uncle, would it be okay with you? If it's not okay that it would happen to you or somebody else, then it shouldn't be okay, even if you don't like those other people, that it's happening to them. An injustice is an injustice, regardless of who it is happening to. And I'm telling you, if we keep going in this way, and we keep saying, well, it's not happening to me, and I don't like those people, so good, I'm glad it's happening to them. Where is that taking us? I'll tell you where it's taking us. It's taking us right down the path of lawlessness, to which there probably will be no return. And you will see more people taking on themselves what law enforcement, what the judicial system, and everybody else is supposed to do. You'll see vigilantism. And I hope to God that it never comes to that point. Because at that point, I mean, I don't know what you do at that point. Because it's basically the law as we know it, the United States as we know it, is totally over. Because we have laws in place for a reason. It's called civilization, partly. And we have to have those laws to keep people in order and everything civilized. And once you lose that, it's over. But people, I don't know, people who, I don't know if they've forgotten who they are, if they never learned, if their lives aren't based on biblical principles anymore. And I think a lot of that's what it is. The atheist population is growing leaps and bounds, while the Christian population is not. So I think people are not being raised on the same principles that perhaps you and I were raised on. There's no foundation from which to reach down to and grab, some onto a lifeboat and say, what do I need to do? Oh, right, here's the answer. Here's what I need to do. And again, that starts at a very young age, teaching your children right from wrong. At this point, we say, oh gosh, I'm never wrong. It's always somebody else's fault. There is no right and wrong anymore. Everything is the way it's supposed to be and can be right depending upon what you want right now. I mean, it's so messed up. There's no clear definitions of right and wrong anymore to some people because it benefits them not to have a clear definition. You and I, and the people listening to this program, you know exactly what right and what wrong is. You know it. As a child, you were taught by your parents to do the right thing, and you knew without them even telling you what the right thing was. You knew when you did the wrong thing, when you had the wrong behavior, you felt it in your gut and you knew it was wrong. I don't think a lot of people have that gauge anymore. They really don't. There's no filter. It's like, well, that they'll see something and they'll say, I'm going to take that. I've had people, kids, they'll come in to see me and they'll have a new cell phone and I'll say, wow, where'd you get that? Oh, my dad got it for me. Oh, where'd your dad get it? Well, he found it. Excuse me? Yeah, well, somebody either lost it or whatever, and my dad gave it to me. And I'm like, don't you know that belongs to someone? Did you try to find the owner? You're using somebody else's phone. You don't have a problem with that? And no, it's like, it's there. Nobody's around it. Nobody has their hand on it, so it belongs to me. Where did we get off the tracks, because we're off the tracks. We somehow have to start re-educating ourselves and our children back to the point where good values, good moral values, that we understand what the law is, that we know right from wrong, that we have a belief system that won't allow us to go off the tracks. And if we don't try to turn that around, again, we're just in the midst of lawlessness, and that's where we will stay. So I hope you, like myself, will start looking at changes that we need to make, helping others make those changes in our systems that are broken. And know that it's not dependent upon one particular man or one particular woman to get us there. But it is up to us to find our way there and to make those changes and to make our politicians, our judges, our chiefs of police to make them responsible for their actions and to make them accountable to us for those actions. And we, the American public, we haven't done that for quite some time now. And we really need to start taking back the reins and getting back to being in control and not allowing other people to control us. Until next time, it's Susan Knowles with Knowles on the News.